amazing conversations. I made a couple of promises. I didn't promise the people I would go to the Gold Dome and work for the lobbyists and the special interests. I promised them that I would fight, and I would always fight for them. That's how it started. Let me tell you how it's going. A couple years ago, when people were getting fired from their jobs for not taking the COVID vaccine, by the way, pause. Any of y'all as thankful as I am that you did not take the COVID vaccine? Any of you parents in the room as proud as I am that you did not make your kids take the COVID vaccine? When that craziness was happening, and I saw people in my own community losing their jobs over the refusal to take the vaccine, I authored and passed legislation to outlaw vaccine passports in the state of Georgia. And let me tell you something. When it comes to making Georgia and America healthy again, we delivered, but we're not done. We had woke accreditation agencies come into Forsyth County and inject DEI programs into our school system. I authored legislation to ban that practice and ensure that there would not be any indoctrination of our kids on our watch. Because when it comes to fighting back against all neo-Marxism and all anti-American ideologies, we have delivered, but we're not done. When we had legitimate questions about the fairness and accuracy of the 2020 election, I stood with Brandon Beach, Burt Jones, and William Ligon and called for a special session of the Georgia General Assembly.
Yes.
When that didn't work, I inserted and helped write key provisions that were a part of Senate Bill 202. I fought to remove QR codes from the ballot, and I co-sponsored legislation to get rid of the Dominion machines. When it comes to election integrity, we delivered, but we're not done. When President Trump and other conservatives identified school choice as the educational issue of our time, I authored and passed the most sweeping school choice legislation in the history of the state of Georgia. When it comes to putting parents in the driver's seat of their child's education, we delivered, but we're not done. When I found out that Georgia veterans were paying some of the highest income tax in the nation on their military retirement income, I wrote legislation to completely eliminate it.
Thank you.
When it comes to defending and fighting for Georgia veterans, we delivered, but we're not done. When Fonnie Willis, Fonnie Willis, went rogue and targeted President Trump and other Georgians, I wrote the legislation to form the Senate Special Committee on Investigations, to subpoena Willis, put her under oath, and get to the bottom of her scheme of prosecution for personal profit. Because when it comes to fighting for the rule of law, we delivered, but we're not done. When Riley Gaines and dozens of other female athletes were forced to compete against and share a locker room with a male right down the street in the capital city of Atlanta, I authored and passed the Riley Gaines Act to ensure that no female would ever be subject to that again in the state of Georgia. When it comes to fighting the radical left and defending our daughters, we delivered, but we're not done. And in 2024, I traveled the state and campaigned for President Trump. I linked arms with many of you to ensure that we would deliver the must-win state for the president. And on this important work, on winning Georgia elections, I'm proud to say that we delivered, but we're not done. My name is Senator Greg Dolezal. I'm a husband, a father of 4, I'm a business owner, and I'm a very proud American. I stood in the gap when it mattered, and I've got the scars to prove it. I fought for our faith, our freedom, and our families. I delivered on that promise to those 10,000 recipients that I made 7 years ago. But I'm not done. Not while the left tries to rewrite the truth. Not while woke ideologies target our kids. Not while unelected bureaucrats and radical judges try to run this country into the ground. And certainly not while Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff represent this state in the United States Senate. And y'all know this. This is a battle for our state. But watch this. I didn't come to play defense. I came to fight and win. I came to fight and win. And some people think that I'm done just because the legislation session is over. But I'm not done. And I hope you aren't either. Thank you very much.